Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where three grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name is Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is Fred from How to RPG and the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett.
Yo.
Good morning. It's early. I have dragged these boys out of bed early. I have tested the boundaries of our friendship.
I got a secret. I haven't actually slept yet. I've been up all night. I got into an art kick, and then we're streaming some horror movies over Discord, and yeah, it was a great time.
Nice. I played Tomb of Horrors, and then I decided to attempt to make Driz Duarden on Baldur's Gate 3 as a playable character. So,
how did that level 20 game with Tomb of Horrors go?
Hilarious. We spent so Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah.
The boys spent an hour trying to figure out how to get into the Tomb of Horrors, just outside that hill, to the point where they were like hitting it with Eldritch Blast, because I'm just running it as written.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing all these like insane like things with all their new level 20 powers, and then I got them to roll an insight check, and I just said, you hear this wise voice of this mighty sage known as the Great Gygax, and he enters your mind and he tells you, only prodding the entrance with a 10-foot pole or a spear will reveal.
You literally had to tell them how to get in after an hour of them blasting it with their level 20 features.
Like, why did I even prep this dungeon? We're not even getting in there. And then the first guy just triggered the first trap. Like, they just made a manhole. He went in, and the first trap is the chest. Yeah, straight away gone. The other two outsiders, like,
jeez.
We only got as far as the hallway.
Brutal.
We didn't get to really stretch. So, so for anyone that doesn't know, I'm testing out the new 2024 rules by putting my players through the Tomb of Horrors.
I had the same experience with one of the old Traveller modules, so the Droin Ruins or the Ancients Ruins, and we couldn't even get inside. It was just like, we've traveled all this way to this planet to investigate the ruins. Can you throw us a bone? And he's just like, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's because I'm writing it as written, and I'm like having to say, because it says if a player closely inspects something, and they're like, yeah, I'll investigate it, and I'm like, yeah, so are you closely inspecting it? I need you to say the words.
Exactly how. Yeah.
Yeah, so
be specific. It's for science.
I am running it like Uncle Gary intended, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a difference between I investigate it and I inspect it? I feel like that's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, no, damn cool.
I mean, you don't have to. He doesn't have to roll a dice to do an investigation check. I inspect it and I investigate it. Feels
but you
very
have to,
similar.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was hilarious. We had a great time. I think it's the best way to approach this is just a dumb funhouse dungeon. I got them to all make backup characters as well, so we didn't have to fuck around. So, yeah,
right.
And this is backup characters for level 20. Oh,
yeah,
that's quite an investment.
Well, there are some instant deaths. There's one trap there that just says if you do this, then you are forever destroyed. Mm-hmm. There's no coming back, no saving throw, no dice roll.
There's more than one.
Doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter what level you are. Yeah. Oh, there's one that changes just. I don't want to ruin it because my players do. They listen to it, but there's one in there. If they go through a gate, they wake up outside, and all their weapons are gone, and their sex and alignment has changed.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So what are you boys been up to?
I was hanging out with my family yesterday, having a gathering because I helped my sister move house, which was physically daunting and messed me up pretty bad. But that's all I've been doing, and then sleeping. Yeah.
It's probably dust inhalation, Fred. That's probably what you're suffering from right now. Not hay fever and feeling sick. You probably just got a crap load of dust in your system.
Could be. Who knows?
Well, I wish you a speedy recovery. I took my mum out to dinner. It was her birthday. She had a great day.
Yeah, that's right. You did take mum out. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I'm taking my mum out today, so we're all good boys.
Yeah. Dutiful son. So today we're talking about another type of baby. That's the babies of the RPG industry when it breeds and makes players who decide that they're going to go off on their own and make their own role playing games. And this is indie RPGs.
So this was voted actually by the community. We put a few things up, and this was the clear winner. Indie RPGs on the rise is what I threw up.
So what the hell is an indie
yeah.
RPG? I always sort of like, for me, default, it's like not Dungeons and Dragons. But there's indie Dungeons and Dragons-esque games. Like you could even argue that Pathfinder is an indie RPG. Tunnels and Trolls was the first non-D&D dungeon role-playing game, but it was still very similar to D&D if you look at it that way. But it's more like a fighting fantasy style gameplay. Even fighting fantasy is an indie RPG.
I asked ChatGPT what it was, and it told me that an indie
bikinis on RPG, hippos are popular. Yeah.
No, it's quite sensible. Indie RPGs are created by small teams or solo developers, often self-published or crowdfunded, offering creative freedom and an outside of the market pressures.
Right. So would that rule out studios?
Pathfinder and Warhammer off the list then?
What about MCDM? That's a studio.
I guess it's a
studio. It became a studio after Matt Colville put out his first book. So but yeah, it's tricky because you could have collaborative efforts like supplements where a team of writers come together, but that's a non-official material for like other role-playing game systems quite often. But if we're talking like individual role-playing systems that are not Dungeons and Dragons, that is not part of a larger commercial studio.
I think it's something that would allow creative freedom. There's no pressure from a board or a greater agenda to, giving it a more niche appeal.
So that may rule out free league games like Dragonbane and Forgotten Lands and or Forbidden Lands and Alien RPG and Electric State and stuff like that, or Monty Cook games with the Strange and Cypher system.
Maybe. I mean, I think what we're dealing with here is just games that aren't D&D. Really, that's really what we're talking about. Like the reality is that Dungeons and Dragons is often viewed in America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and sometimes the UK, as the biggest game.
But it's by far the biggest slice of the pie.
It's not. It's not. You've got to understand that this is coming from a perspective of people like, D&D is obviously the most popular game in America, North America in particular, and then Canada and Australia and New Zealand, and only in New Zealand because of Australia. Otherwise, we don't get D&D. They just would not ship it. I know how that works because I found out a long time ago. The reality is that the rest of the world are playing different games, and there's quite a few different reasons for that, and we'll discuss that. But I think we're dealing with just games that aren't D&D, really.
I think I think because stuff like Kickstarter, crowdfunding has now boosted these things, so it kind of allows these indie creators to get direct funding from the people that want these games now. Yeah, and just community engagement. I think also digital tools like things like virtual laptops like Foundry and VTTs allow them to get people now to be able to game test at home and get feedback as well. So it's just changed. You can now create a game and get it out there and have people playing it and get it funded, all from like you are doing, AJ. All from.
Yeah. There's an interesting spin now that we have streaming services are normalized in the industry. And I was around for the start of that wave through Facebook and Google Hangouts and getting groups together online. Because everybody, originally back in late 90s was obsessed with in-person games. And when they couldn't have an in-person game, they would try playing text-based games or email-type games and things like that. But they were quite notorious for just petering out or not working. But when we started with video hangouts, it was more like the in-person experience. So, like I always say, you start with something familiar, then you introduce the new to it. And for that, it was familiar enough to the old school role players to adopt it as that sort of method, but they still took a lot of the physical in-person aspects of the game, dice rolling, maps, miniatures, that sort of stuff, and they transported it as much to the broadcasting, video cameraing experience as possible. Gradually, the new player groups that came in with 5th edition and stuff have moved away from that, and they're more leaning towards technical role play to more imagination based role play. So we're talking cooperative narratives, combats and stuff that don't rely, like very simple dice mechanics and things like that. Whereas technical roleplay is more simulationist, it's more wargaming, it's more grid, stuff like that. So 4th edition would be technical, and 5th edition is more imagination. But yeah, they've got a difficult problem because they have to transport it over. So they're making their own BTT with all the game elements and stuff. Baldur's Gate, I think, has helped perpetuate the technical side of BTT-ish stuff a lot, because that's now opened up to modding, and modding is also a type of indie design, because you're using it's non-canon level design and stuff that you're introducing. But of course it's very high level with Baldur's Gate. Very high level.
Made me jump back onto Baldur's Gate 3 because the modding's now come across to the console version.
Oh, so yeah, it's gonna be huge.
I was playing around with that. That's why I started playing with it again last night, because now I can actually make Dritz Duarden in this game.
Yeah.
So
for me, as a designer of role-playing stuff, I'm looking at the opportunity that more computer-based, more like Magic the Gathering, they're gonna need a lot more input, like weekly sort of like more stuff is going to be coming out. They'll have a lot more settings. They'll have a lot more world building stuff that they're trying to train Dungeon Masters with a new Dungeon Master guide that's coming out. So I see my role as, I just put out a new feat for the halflings, for instance, or for a mobility feat. So I see myself as, I'm going to be able to contribute a lot to modular stuff that people can put into their games. And I think Wizards of the Coast is really going to be looking for people to do that, contribute a lot to D&D Beyond's group of stuff, and you could probably get yourself a gig just putting out regular stuff like that. So people who do that sort of thing already do newsletters, fanzines, like Esper, for instance. He produces a lot of indie content. Fred, you do too as well, and Wally, of course, with all the puzzles and stuff. So I'm looking at like making new monsters and things like that you can throw in there, and just posting it up on D&D Beyond on whatever facility that they have. Hopefully people don't have to pay tokens to access it, but yeah, the system that they've got with huge amounts of card releases for Magic the Gathering is exactly the model we're going to see with the VTT that comes out with the game. So obviously going to have lots of miniatures and cosmetic skins and stuff like that people can access, different dice sets and stuff, but it'll be much more comprehensive than that. So we'll see setting specific or group, release specific mods and things that people will be putting out. So it'll be indie within the official, is what I'm saying.
So, are we talking about D&D in this podcast, or are we talking about Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast, or are we talking about everybody else? Because I'm a little lost as to where we're going.
What
right
I'm saying,
now.
my point there is that 5th edition is going to be more indie and creative and non-technical. So it's already got third-party stuff on the official D&D Beyond website. So Kobold Press's Monster Books, the Midgard setting is indie, but it's now Drakenheim is indie. And stuff, but they're now on the official website.
I think we just need to make one mention about Wizards of the Coast. We need to address the elephant in the room, which is the OGL controversy really did push people into sort of non-mainstream options. I feel like it really pissed people off enough to want to try something else, and I think that's the only thing we need to mention about D&D.
Yeah, it bit really deep into the creative community, and a lot of people haven't even returned to 5th edition, really. They're still making content and stuff like that, but I haven't played officially the 5th edition game for quite a while. There's been so many indie games to try out, which we're going to be talking about a lot today.
Yeah. I think it fueled the fire of this rise of indie games.
So I think one of the things that probably need to be also addressed is that that thing that's been bandied around the internet and YouTube, and it's the D&D killer. Like that there's going to be a new indie game or a new publisher that'll come out with a game that
Yeah.
is so popular
Yeah.
that it becomes the game over Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm.
And this happened with 4E because Pathfinder, everybody was playing Pathfinder or 3.5 when 4E came out. I think that's a complete nonsense because it would only ever apply to the community of North America, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, where most D&D is being played. So
Yeah.
I think that killer is not a thing, but what we're
Oh.
definitely seeing is a fragmentation, right?
Yeah.
And so there's these smaller communities developing, and the smaller publishers are being able to take a bit more of a bite, and there's so many of them chewing away at those particular markets, those 3 or 4 markets. They're chewing away at those markets. It may not be affecting the rest of the world that much because the rest of the world are playing different games. But those are the markets that are probably going to be affected the most.
Mm. I could argue that during 4th edition, Pathfinder briefly eclipsed Dungeons and Dragons in North America and Canada for overall sales. But as you say, yeah, that was specific. I mean, in Japan, for instance, Call of Cthulhu was more popular than Dungeons and Dragons. In Brazil, I think something else. And of course, Scandinavian country had Dragonbane for many years. So yeah, there are different markets out there that play different games, and it's a different landscape. I'm waiting to see what emerges in the Philippines, actually, because a lot of people there were getting interested in role-playing games around the time that the OGL happened. And it's interesting to see what sort of fragmentation would happen with an industry which is really at the start of its climb, to see whether they've adopted something else or not. But they've been rather quiet on their Facebook group. But I'm watching, guys.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about Indonesia because I was an D&D Adventurers League coordinator. And the problem for Indonesia and the Philippines is, one,
Religion.
they need the translation.
Oh yeah.
They need to do a translation. It's too hard to play some of these really complicated game systems unless it's translated, particularly when your first language is not English.
No, it'd be Tagalog or there's a lot of
Yeah.
D&D and Tagalog would be great.
But they also have an importing problem. So the taxation on it, and just, I know that the community in the Philippines were literally having to get a community together, and they would pull their money together, and then they would buy a container full of product, whatever they wanted, books and dice and all those things, miniatures, and they would get it shipped over, and then they would break it all up after that. So they literally didn't have an importer to get the thing into the country in the first place. So, and you could say, oh, you can buy it online. Yeah, I hate to say it. Just buying online does not mean that they will ship it to you. I've come across that. If I wanted to buy Fate dice and their books from Evil Hat online, they do not ship it to New Zealand.
No.
It does not come to us.
No.
They don't ship outside of America. So, yeah.
We do have a way around that. We've got a postal center in America which sends it on to us in New Zealand. So there is actually that option for us. But we don't want to let them know that.
Well, but it's not cheap to do that. I mean, you're really going to get hammered. And this is part of the problem in terms of, this is why it's not as simple as, okay. And these are rising
even
because
the
of one
shipping
reason.
on some of these bigger ones like the MCDM, their shipping to New Zealand is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, there's the good reason why a lot of people use Drive-Thru RPG, because it does ship out to lots of different places because of their methodology and their reach, just their market reach.
Yeah. I remember, I was looking at one of the books off MCDM, and the shipping was the same price as the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is just stupid.
Yeah, and if it's got to go air too, because if you go sail, we're still dealing with a backlog of products that aren't getting shipped because of the COVID-19 and the shipping crisis that happened.
Mm.
Well, should we go through some of these big ones that have come out?
Well, I think we probably need this. I think we probably do need to mention too that the open game license issue back in 2023 didn't just spur on the development of new games, new tabletop role-playing games, but also it forced existing publications who were using the open game license as a quick and easy licensing agreement to make their game open, but shared no rules with the 3.5 SRD or the 5.5e SRD. It had nothing related to it, and their game mechanics was so different. But they just wanted to use a license. So now those companies and those publishers, if they're still around, they're in the process of republishing their games without the OGL, just so they do not have to deal with any bollocks from in the future. They just don't, the trust has gone. So therefore, you see a lot of republishing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nostalgia stuff as well. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming out with a new edition. Well, it's a reboot of the old edition because there's nothing wrong with that rule set. Yeah. It's different from. Don't be confused with the Palladium, which brought us Rifts and Heroes Unlimited. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game was primarily written by Eric Wujcik, who was an absolutely phenomenal RPG writer, and the system is a lot more streamlined and smooth. We see the kernel of the combat system and stuff like that you get in those later games, but Rifts is far more jumbled and confusing set of combat rules. Ninjas and Super Spies, you get much more of the vibe that was intended. So it's much more approachable, I think.
Also, too, I was looking up, what sort of games, because I've done some surveys on this, and I've also done a bit of research in the past and recently. It's really hard to determine what other countries are playing. But one of the things that's very interesting is, like, for example, Japan, their primary game, tabletop role-playing game, is Call of Cthulhu and a mix of other small things. But the biggest one is Call of Cthulhu. D&D is growing in popularity in Japan, but it's certainly nowhere near Call of Cthulhu.
It'll never get that market reach that Call of Cthulhu has because it's too unfamiliar to what they're used to.
Yeah, but also too, Call of Cthulhu has Japanese translation, so that helps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you put out a book, if you have your translations ready to go, that helps. And China's an interesting one. It has a mix of tabletop role-playing games, but it's also a very small niche. I mean, a huge population, small niche. And China doesn't really play D&D.
No,
if you look at India, which is a huge country.
God, I wish they did, because it would be a massive market.
Yeah, it would be. But you'd also, but they don't really have a translation for Cantonese or Mandarin.
No.
And then India, if you look at India, they prefer board games. They don't really play tabletop role-playing games. It's a non-entity there. Germany's really interesting in that they play a lot of board games, a lot of tabletop role-playing games, but the primary game that they play is the Black Eye, which of course it's made in Germany. It's a German publisher, so it's actually got it's written in German, so that helps. Sweden's really interesting. Sweden produces, in a small country, produces a lot of tabletop role-playing games, but they prefer a game called Rune Masters. And you thought, oh, okay, it must be a Morkborg or Merkborky or something like that, or Pirate Borg. No, Rune Masters. And then Russia has nothing. Like tabletop role-playing games in Russia, not really a thing. Board games, yes, they do have games, but not that sort of game. And
in Russia, role-playing games play you.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say in Sweden they got to play
any life role plays.
We'll play anything as long as you can play it in the sauna. Yeah. Yeah.
Poland's really interesting, is they seem to venture towards the dark side. So they prefer Warhammer RPG.
Oh yeah.
Second edition, third edition, and fourth edition apparently are not very popular because they felt like whatever. But Poland is really interesting in that there were some people playing D&D in that country, but Wizards of the Coast, because of sales, has not been very good. They have stopped their translation in Portuguese. So Poland is clearly not focusing on D&D right now. And France is horrifically bizarre in that they have an enormous publishing industry for tabletop role-playing games. They make many different, they make so many different tabletop role-playing games for such a small country, and they play so many different games. And D&D's there, but it's tiny. Brazil, you'd think now Brazil, you're like, they love D&D, but they can't get it in their translated to their language. So
France Some of the French stuff that I've seen have been very, very artistic. They include art prints and beautifully illustrated books and things like that. But they're so esoteric and such a vibe that I'm like, wow, like what specific little niche of the industry did this come from? And like, what sort of games did they play around the table in France? Yeah.
And Brazil, you would have thought D&D would be big there because that they loved the D&D cartoon so much, and they made that ad, and it was hugely popular in Brazil.
Yeah,
but no, Tormenta is their game. It's a big thing there because it's it's in their language, so they don't have to wait months, years for a translation over to the language they're speaking, their primary language. And UK tends to prefer D&D and Warhammer, but it's hard to determine. It's not that easy to figure out. It's I would have thought the Brits would be a bit easier to figure out, but apparently not.
All right. Okay, so should we get to some of the big ones that are either come out or are coming out?
Yeah.
The ones that have kind of, I guess, been rumored to be the possible D&D killer, which we've determined isn't going to happen.
Yeah, the chippers, they're the chipperways.
So first off,
I would start with the one that won all the awards at Gen Con.
Yeah, this is what I've got. This one, yep. So, one that a lot of people, it's already out, is Shadowdark by Kelsey from the Arcane Library. So Shadowdark is a old school fantasy adventure game with modern design. Successfully funded on Kickstarter for 1.3 million and just won a whole heap of awards. You guys have played it? I've played the solo game.
Yep. Great game.
I think we could do a whole episode on Shadowdark.
Oh, we should.
Yeah, I think we should. I've played the game a few times, and I've game mastered for it. And my stress levels were never going to go anywhere other than down, 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 down. It's a great game, and people say, oh, it's using 5e mechanics. It's actually using more basic D&D mechanics than it is 5e mechanics. And she's pulled from other game systems. Runehammer, she's pulled from that RPG, the card game. I can't remember exactly what it's called. What did Fernand's game system get called? That was
I can't. No,
ICRPG.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So she's pulled from there. She's pulled from other game systems just to make it as simple as possible. And then occasionally there's added complexity, which I was like, what was going on there? Like, why do you insist on rolling initiative to crawl? So you're not in combat. You're just going to take turns. This is a turn system, basically, so that everybody gets an opportunity. Cool. Then we get to combat. Let's roll initiative again. Like, what the hell is going on? I think that Kelsey was like, I really like rolling initiative. And of course, I'm completely the opposite. So every time I run Shadowdark, I'm going to be ignoring that rule. Heck, I even ignored the rule where if you roll a 20, when you fall to 0 hit points, you don't die in Shadowdark, right? You're actually just dying. You roll a 4-sided dice, you add your con modifier. That's how many rounds you have before you bleed out and die like a fish. But you're allowed to roll a 20-sided dice. There's no failed saves or successful saves. But if you roll a 20, you get 1 hit point back, and you can play. You can continue playing your character rather than waiting for somebody to heal you or stabilize you. I just ignored that rule as well. I was like, but ultimately, at its core, it's a very clever and well-designed game for level 1 to 10, and it will certainly appeal.
It's a very good. It's in the Goldilocks zone where you concentrate on the story. There's just enough game mechanics to make it interesting. It doesn't get in the way. It's fast, but it's deep, and it's got a clear-cut vibe to it.
Yeah, it has things in it that I normally don't like in an RPG that somehow work, like things like gear management.
The torch mechanic.
Time pressure, all that sort of stuff. Things that normally aren't my bag, but it works. I want to give a shout out to the art.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think the art style in it's the one that I really want. Too bad we can't get physical copies at the moment. It's so hard to get,
I
especially
know.
where we live.
Yeah.
But it's one I'd really like to actually own the book,
If
because
you want the
art,
book,
the
it's
art,
going to cost you
I know,
$152
I know.
and $98 for the book, and the rest is shipping.
You guys are all right. You guys aren't married, so you don't have the joys of a shared bank account and justifying to your wife where this transaction.
What's this? Yeah. Yeah. The
I have that.
solo. Not only that, but we've got a solo play version of it as well now.
Yeah.
So hats off to Kelsey for continuing to expand and build on the community and the play options. But yeah, for God's sake, we need to get more of those books published.
So I think we will in the future do an episode on Shadowdark. So we won't talk too much about it because we all love it. These guys have played the actual game, and I've played the solo game. And
yeah, for me, Shadowdark was so impressive that it completely swamped my memory of playing Cloak and Dagger, whatever the hell.
That's our next one. Okay.
Daggerheart, yeah.
Yeah, so our next one is Daggerheart from Darrington Press, aka Critical Role. Daggerheart is a collaborative storytelling RPG set in an original fantasy world by the creators of Critical Role. The game features accessible gameplay with card and token-based mechanics, minimizing the need for excessive rulebook references. With detailed character sheets, as it's designed to engage both friends of Critical Role and newcomers, inviting players into an immersive and dynamic storytelling experience. So it's meant to be a more flavor, less crunch game, is what I'm getting from that.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Doesn't achieve its goal. No.
No. It achieved one thing. It has cards. And thank God the cards are there, because otherwise it would have been look, I played the game. I think it's got a market. But I will never play the game again, and I have no intentions of ever running the game. Yeah, no.
And kind of the hype for that one seems to have fizzled out to me. Like when it was announced, it was just, we have very RPG focused social media, so we're driven, and it seemed to be everywhere on my social media feed.
I would say that was part of the initial rush of RPGs that came out after the OGL, because they saw the market opportunity. They saw a question that needed to be answered, and they rushed out a product, and that was a rushed out product. Shadowdark is a much more thoughtful, and I would say just genius inspired, and that's a large part because of their Kelsey's ability to compromise, and she's got a vibe that she's going for, and she'll drop mechanics that seem precious in order to get there, which I really took on board when I started my design process. And I think a lot of people got, by the time Shadowheart came out, they were a little bit burnt out on reading new rule systems.
Yeah, but she's also done something that most of the people in the industry don't do. She had a 3-year testing period.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yep.
I'd say unheard of to have 3 years of testing.
Take note, Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
I was I was a little bit curious for Daggerheart when it was first announced, because I do like the Wildmount book, and I thought that's one of the best resource books in 5e. And that's Darrington Press that did that. But as soon as I saw the gameplay, I sat down and watched the actual Critical Role guys play it. I was just like, this isn't for me. I'm not interested in this.
It's also kind of scary to review if you're a YouTuber or something, because you've got basically an army of Critical Role fans who, if they don't like what you said, they will crucify you. And so it's kind of like, it's got to be really good for me to approach this, because if we play it wrong, we might get like dogpiled. So yeah, it's a bit intimidating.
And a lot of them are trying to. I notice a lot of them are trying to use different dice. They're moving away from that D20. They're like trying to. In our game, we use D6s. In our game, we use 2. So is this the 2D10 system? Is this one? Like you've got one's a good die and one's a bad die. Am I thinking of the different?
It's a combination of things. So it's got card mechanics and it's got dice mechanics as well.
Yeah, no, he's using a different dice. It's not a D20. Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
They also put out Candelera Obscura, which had a tiny sort of buzz in the Critical Role and the YouTube community, followed by a no thank you very much.
Yeah, that was because they didn't come up with them themselves. I think it was co-opted from some other company or something.
Well,
and
it was they used a freely, cannibalizable game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Blades in the Dark, I believe. The the Apocalypse, they're powered by the Apocalypse rule system, which is you can build a game from that, and people seem to view that as being stealing somebody else's stuff, but but it's designed specifically to be done.
Yeah.
And the designer had no issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was just everybody else who had issues. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was just it didn't resonate. Maltborg.
I know we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
I want to go through the big ones first. So let's talk about Mr. Koval. MCDM RPG. It's now got a name. Draw Steel. Draw Steel is a fantasy RPG where players start as level 1 heroes, diving straight into the action. The game focuses on epic. There's a lot of this word epic and dynamic in every one of these descriptions. Epic dynamic encounters without traditional burdens of dungeon crawling or exploration. Combat uses a 2d6 for attacks, doubling as damage rolls, ensuring no wasted turns. Players can also negotiate with NPCs and engage in crafting, enhancing the experience of fighting monsters and unraveling stories. I feel like I should be doing something with my hands, how Matt Koval, when I describe it.
It sounded like he was just describing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's very 4E influence from what I've seen.
Oh, yes, very much so. But he's gone in the direction that the 4E design team wanted to go, but we were not able to, because they could not convince people when they were designing 4E that they didn't need to make an attack roll. Or if they did make an attack roll, they should still do, reduce hit points, do damage. Do damage just means code 4, if you weren't aware, you reduce hit points. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you have suffered an injury, had a scratch or anything like that. It just means damage is just code 4, you reduce hit points. And so what he's done is he's removed the attack roll, which is smart, right? Because then all you're dealing with is hit points as a timer. And they've decided that the idea is they want a more tactical game, which is what 4E was. And frankly, I would say 5E is also a tactical game if you're using a grid, but also the 2024 game is also very much a tactical game.
Fifth edition includes in its standard stat blocks and stuff standardized damage rolls. So they give you 10 points or 2d6, or so you got the option of not rolling your damage dice.
Yeah. So now they've got the idea that really for me I think it's more of a combat simulator, Draw Steel, and that's kind of the sort of thing he's always said that he wanted to have. So he's made it. That's fine. I'm not really interested, but it's fine.
Just due to the cost of shipping from MCDM to New Zealand, I will not be playing it. Or have it just because I can't afford to get it. So
ironically, for somebody who grew up playing Palladium, it's too crunchy for me. If I want that crunchy, I'll just play 5e. Or, God forbid, Pathfinder.
Yeah.
I'm too afraid of Pathfinder 2nd edition.
I've got the book, and I played it. I played it at conventions, and I will play it if that's what's going, because the game's the game. So I'll play anything, but by preference, no.
This is one that I felt like came out of the gate straight out of the OGL, and everyone was super excited, and now I haven't heard fuck all about it. I think it was originally called Black Flag. It's now got a name. Tales of the Valiant RPG from Kobold Press, set in a labyrinth of worlds filled with adventure. So it's being divided into 2 books, the Player's Guide and the Monster Vault. The Player's Guide features 13 classes, lineages, and heritages from classic fantasy role-playing games, along with all the essential rules for the GM in one book. The Monster Vault provides a comprehensive collection of dungeon crawling and fire-breathing fantasy creatures for crafting compelling encounters, along with advice for creating challenges and using the new Doom trait on the monsters. This seemed really like one of the first ones that everyone was really excited about. And now I just don't hear anyone talking about it at all.
Yeah, it's one of those. They hyped it up like the raise the flag, etc. And everybody was like feeling very revolutionary at the time. But then it was just like, well, now that the smoke is cleared, what have you actually made? Yeah, and then it's like,
I have a bent on this because I was talking with Wally about this yesterday because he has the books. And I've looked at the rule system, and they have made very minor changes. Most of their changes are to character creation. The core rules are pretty much essentially the same. They haven't really changed very much, which is really smart, and I'll explain why. And then their character options. There's been a few changes in the character option stuff in terms of progression and so forth, but it's not a huge variation. It's essentially 5e, just reprinted by Kobold Press. Now, for those of people who are thinking, well, what a stupid thing to do. Well, it's not going to be a stupid thing to do when suddenly people decide they still want to keep playing Dungeons & Dragons 2014 5e, and they can't play that because guess what? Wizards of the Coast is only making it available as a digital download. They want a physical book. Can't get a physical book because it's no longer in print, and it'll go out of print. So what do? You go and buy Tales of the Valiant because it's essentially the same thing. And I can't remember if they put it under Creative Commons, the licensing for it, or something else. But I think, it might be under the Orc, which is a weird license. I can't remember.
Yeah, they made their own version.
Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter because now if you want to play D&D 5e 2014, it goes out of print. You just go buy Tales of the Valiant, and you're pretty much good.
Yeah.
Smart, really smart.
Another great improvement in an indie RPG that uses the 5e mechanics as a base was the Stargate SG-1. You've heard me talk about this before, that it came up with several innovations to the 5e rules, which I thought were fantastic, very workable, very much on tone and vibe for a TV show or a series type game, where you could change the entire difficulty of the game, much like sliding the challenge rating on encounter. So the challenge rating would be more deadly or more sort of less deadly and more comedic or character driven. And then as you're progressing through the story and you get to the climactic boss fight, it becomes more deadly. So it's a really great way of changing up the game, which I think could be adapted into Spelljammer or any sort of, if you want a more sort of TV style roleplay experience with 5th edition. Yeah. Then that was a good game to pick up some really good ideas.
Okay. Another one that is on the rise that I don't think probably any of us have got much to say about is the Stormlight Archive RPG, which is based on the works of Brandon Sanderson, who's a whole series of massive books. He's kind of now just considered the godfather of modern fantasy. I haven't read any of his stuff. He's been on my reading list, but his books are massive, man. So the Stormlight Archive RPG is set in the world of Rosha and allows players to create their own characters within Sanderson's epic fantasy universe. It does utilizes the D20 system, and the game features a unique plot dice mechanic that enhances gameplay with added drama and excitement. And players can choose from the various classes and factions, immersing themselves into a rich lore and intricate world of Rosha. This is obviously very niche, but I think because of the popularity of his writing and his books, he's very interactive in his community. He's always out on YouTube and he's always talking, and he's so I think this is just gained popularity just due to how popular he is. Really,
yeah.
Well, I don't think that's the only reason, because it's actually called Cosmere, that game. I know because I've seen it. I'm not going to tell you how I've seen it, but I've seen it.
Cosmere is the universe, I think, is like Middle-earth is to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but the book itself, it's Cosmere. I've seen it. I've actually seen the book. Well, at least in its current, I won't tell you from where. But it is basically D&D just pared down. So things have been sort of stripped down that were considered unnecessary. Certainly a lot more than probably other D&D clones have done. It's got a little bit of stuff there that's its own thing, taken probably from other systems. So it has a very fantasy D&D vibe to it. It's just something else. That's all.
Yeah. I think we could
it's got
comment
a huge
more.
Following though. Like he had a massive Kickstarter. not just in terms of the amount of money he made off the Kickstarter, but also just the number of people who signed on. Like it was a huge number of people.
His fans are intensely passionate. I've got a couple of players that are Sanderson readers, and they're always like, when you get people that just leave books and go, "You need to read this," and these books are they're fat as fuck, and I'm like, I just don't have time to read this.
I should show you some Peter F. Hamilton books. They average around 400 pages.
And
it's a light one.
Yeah, and it's book of 6, 1 of 6 or something. So it's like, oh my god, But I should.
I'd love to see a Dungeon Crawler Carl indie game. That'd be great.
Yeah. The last one I want to mention, which is just recently seems to me getting a lot of buzz, comes from a YouTube creator, the Dungeon Coach.
Yep.
DC20. So DC20 innovates fantasy tabletop RPGs with a fresh yet familiar rules, offering epic gameplay and endless customization. Designed for 5e players, it reawakens their creativity and teamwork, allowing for intuitive and dynamic play. The system emphasizes versatility, mechanics across combat, skill challenge, social interactions, exploration, ensuring that every adventure is an engaging and fun one. I think this is getting played because he's got a lot of other YouTubers really.
This was a case playing. Of he was using the Matt Colville effect to really great. So he seeded a lot of support amongst the YouTube community, and that pushed the message right at the start. So his Kickstarter began with a real kick and a bang because he had a large community invested in it. He had been promoting it very well, not too much, but just enough. And when it was time to get the big push of promotion, he hit it right on the nail on the head. And it's the algorithm behind Kickstarter, because it saw that initial big push, it pushed it ahead on other things. It became like a lead page type thing. Our favorite, watch this. And then it became a must back because it had reached the point of backing where everybody got involved. And it's like, wow, everybody's going to have a copy of this book, much like Matt Colville's book. But of course, this is seen as a better version of Pathfinder, a pathfindering of Dungeons and Dragons in a way. So it's more like 3.5 edition, but not Pathfinder.
Well, yeah. So I know a little bit about this game
and
the background.
Point economy.
The four action economy system. It's built and designed. Alan's been very smart. He's designed it specifically to appeal to players who want to do lots of stuff whenever the heck they want to do it, in the turn order. And I don't think I could handle running that game. It would be very, very difficult.
It's a hybrid between technical and imagination run game. So you've got a lot of player agency, much like the stunt systems in Fantasy Age. Any of you who played that, there's a point where you've hit your critical, and now you can choose from your option of shit that's going to make your dungeon master have a nightmare. It's very fluid and very cinematic in the way that the gameplay works. So it's designed to do stunts and do cool shit that you imagine that your character can do.
What he was smart as well is he got Brendan Lee Mulligan. God, I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry,
Mulligan.
But he got him to do the game testing for to do a review for it, and he gave it high praise. Which that guy's got a lot of influence.
Yeah. I've had one-on-one chats with Alan about his RPG.
Yep. So I know one of the individuals behind the Kickstarter who helped Alan get it moving and organised it. I won't reveal who they are, and they just did a really good job of making sure that it was going to do well. A lot of it after that was just a phenomenal amount of advertising through different people, even if they were not particularly interested in the game and were willing to say something about it. So there was a lot of goodwill followed up. That relationship with that individual and Alan have fallen apart because this happens with Alan. Alan has a tendency to get himself into a pickle.
He's very passionate.
But anyway, but the reality is his game is going to do well.
Yeah.
And he has a fairly staunch and loyal following. So all the best to him with what he's got going.
I got a copy of it coming my way too. So yeah, it's definitely going to have a community that are going to be modding and building modules and stuff for it. Same as Vagabond, Taran Pounds' book. That he's very much a one-man effort, and a great one. He's been doing character class development stuff with a team of guys, and he's skilled at publishing. He's got lots of talents actually. And he's quite passionate about it as well, but he can also rub people the wrong way. That's just the way it is with some creative people. He feels passionate about issues, and he'll stand up for himself. He was very, very active during the OGL, one of the lead whistleblowers.
He wasn't one of the lead. He was the lead.
He definitely got a lot of flack for it. Yeah,
he got a lot of flack for it, and a lot of people jumped in and said, "No, we were the ones that let it off." But no, Taran was definitely the first person to say something, and we had the most of the mud, unfortunately.
Yep. I was more in the background, fomenting discontent on Discord. So Vagabond's really good. It's got a lot of different options and things.
Sitting in your chair at home with your cat on your lap going, yes.
Yeah. I'm the one who said nobody's too big to fail. Hasbro, coming for you. And I'm still coming for Hasbro. DC20 really good, and my advice to that you can take from DC20 and his way that he marketed is, if you are approaching YouTubers have no time to do anything other than do the content. So if you're going to come at them and say, could you promote this, please give them a press package, give them a ready to go set of graphics and stuff to say and some selling points and stuff like that they can just go, okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, I can slot that in somewhere.
Yeah,
he knew his community. Yeah,
yes.
He knew.
Yeah.
As a YouTuber, he knew what YouTubers had to have, how we do
it. I think him and Kelsey both smart the way they went around it.
And if you can't provide the YouTubers with a pre-made video that they can put on and monetize, and you're not going to copyright strike them for doing it, they'll do it more than likely. But if you just say, can you put up something on your community tab, that's much more likely to take place.
Can you forward this tweet? Thank you.
You can forward this tweet, or can you put this little post on your community tab or on your social media? That enough. Has helped a lot.
Yeah, you hit 40 YouTubers with that and get 40 tweets going, and promote your own, and that will reach a lot of people.
Yeah,
and will save you about $500 worth of promotion.
Yeah. And Taran's done a very good job. I've been following Taran quite a lot. He's with Vagabond. He has really, not necessarily my game, but I haven't had an opportunity to play it. But he's certainly thought very hard about layout, rules that need to stay, rules that need to go, and how complex the character progression needs to be without you exploding.
He's done all the things Wizards of the Coast promised they were going to do with the new core books.
Yeah. Just the fact you could play a pugilist, for instance. I love that.
I've got a few honourable mentions. I guess we could go through and see if we've got anything to say about any of these ones. Pendragon 6th edition, set in Arthurian England. You step into the shoes of valiant knights navigating medieval politics and moral dilemmas.
That is a game that is like Call of Cthulhu. It's purpose built for a specific vibe. So if you are very interested in playing Arthurian England, chivalry, jousting, serfs, raising armies, that's custom made for it.
Yeah, and King Arthur Pendragon is just an updated version. The game's been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another edition, another version of the game.
Wilder Feast, Monster Hunter style ecosystem. Hunt massive monsters and cook them, balancing the ecosystem while gaining buffs through food. Players are encouraged to rehabilitate and feed monsters, promoting sustainability. This sounds like it's written for you, AJ.
This is a good example of a game system that answers a need, and that need is I want to kill monsters and eat them and use them and stuff. I mean, we've seen Monster Hunter, we've seen Delicious in Dungeon. It is definitely a vibe. It's also a kind of a vor thing. Some people take it a little bit too seriously. No, but it's a great vibe. It's kind of more slapstick. I I struggle to play serious role playing games, so that sort of thing is definitely up my alley. And of course, I have the gift of the monster ecology. So yeah, I can make anything sound like it's legit and scientific.
I love the sound of this one. Eat the Reach. Eat the Rich. Spelled R-E-I-C-H.
The Reich? Eat the Reich.
Eat the Reich.
Yeah.
Set in Nazi-occupied Paris, World War II. Players vampire commandos who have to slice through fascist forces in a darkly humorous game filled with chaotic combat and bizarre characters.
Yeah, my God.
Vampire commandos.
First of all, you're playing monsters, which is always fun. Monsters is a Tunnels and Trolls variant where you are the monsters that come out of the dungeon because you're sick and tired of the adventurers coming and messing up your shit, so you decide to take the fight to them. So that's great. It's definitely a vibe, and it's. I would like to play Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu Modern, or like Arctung Cthulhu. So but this is a different vibe as well. I think it's a bit more fun. Got a bit of Vampire the Masquerade appeal to it as well.
I think campaigns are only like 3 sessions as well.
Yeah,
it's a very short game. Like it just sounds fun.
So realistic, you mean?
Yeah. Oh dear. Break, a Japanese fantasy JRPG inspired world inspired by classic Gee, where's my mouth? JRPGs. Players explore a whimsical world filled with magical creatures and engage in nostalgic gameplay using a D20 system.
I would rather play Vaesen. No thanks. Yokai are fun, but it's
this game I think is going to have more of a following in Japan than it will be in other markets necessarily. It is very much an anime sort of feel to it, and a very much a Japanese culture feel to it, and a Japanese mythology feel to it. I didn't see necessarily a lot of people in the States who were very interested. I did a poll to see how much people might have interacted with that game, and my polls aren't necessarily going to be very super accurate because it's on YouTube. But I think the access to that game right now is a little bit of a problem.
There's 3 Japanese games here. I've got.
Yeah, I like to say that, like, although I'm not an anime fan because I find the artwork style a little bit too cringy to sustain my interest in the story. It's not always the case. Like Delicious in Dungeon, for instance, I really enjoyed that. But a lot of anime, I'm not. Yeah, I am weeb friendly on my Discord channel, and I don't see a lot of interest in the weeb community and playing weeb specific games. So it's not a question that needs to be answered for them. So a lot of those games get made, I think, in a vacuum.
Tokyo Otherscape, a futuristic Tokyo cyberpunk meets Japanese mythology. You become augmented mercenaries battling corporations, yokai, and demons in a world inspired by Japanese legends and cyberpunk themes.
Yeah, my God, there are a lot of games like this. Corporation, cyberpunk, even Shadow. What is it?
Shadow Scar.
Shadow
Scar.
No, the old one.
Oh, sorry. I know what you mean, but I've got a blank.
The one where it's mythical monsters in a modern day setting, kind of like the Bright thing with Will Smith.
Yeah. Flip. What is that called? Oh, I know exactly. I can even picture the cover.
Bright.
No, it's like it was Bright. Yeah,
it's not Shadowpunk. No.
Oh gosh, I had the Xbox 360 game version of
it. Again, I think this is a game that will probably appeal to the Japanese market and possibly some of the Asian market, depending on whether they're speaking Japanese and whether it's printed in English or not.
There's another Japanese one called Shadow Scar, a high fantasy inspired by 17th century Japan with multiverse travel, as you play as multiverse hopping ninjas battling interdimensional threats rooted in Japanese mythology. There is a lot of Japanese games coming out.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting one. Jukebox, the karaoke musical tabletop RPG.
And that's exactly what it sounds like.
Shadowrun. There we go.
Yes. A modern-day office environment, Jukebox is a musical style where players immerse themselves through music to navigate challenges.
Yeah.
God, no. I might as well be playing charades or something,
So first of all, can I just say this game is not made for me necessarily, for AJ or for you.
Also, Fiasco is not an RPG, and stop saying that it is.
It is. It is an RPG.
It's a party game.
It's an RPG. Now, but the reality is, this game I think is appealing to a very specific market, and it's the market that is generally women. I think this is the party girl get together top role playing game where they get to sing seriously. And there's a couple of like if you've gone through that list, there's a couple like that. Look, they got to make some games that appeal to different audience.
Oh, this is the indiest of the indie.
Look, theater kids exist, and this is a game for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One that AJ's already mentioned, and I'm super excited about, is the update to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, which we've talked about in the past. A darker version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which creates mutants of all kind, exploring interdimensional adventures and fighting various foes.
Yeah, this isn't the syndicated pizza munching, van driving Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that you see on the cartoons. This is the original graphic novels and cartoon and comics by Eastman and Laird, and the system was designed by Eric Wujcik, who is in the Hall of Fame right next to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. He's one of the only writers who I think he's own. That's them. That's the Hall of Fame right there. So it gives you some idea of just how good he was. He wrote the manuscript for it in 5 weeks from a rough draft that was submitted by somebody who lost to history. I don't know who. And then basically Kevin Simbeta built the entire Palladium Megaversal rule system on the bones of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Then it was transformed once they lost the rights to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise to After the Bomb, which was a post-apocalyptic mutant animals and stuff. And of course, Riffs includes mutant animals, and so does Heroes Unlimited as well. So yeah, it's a really good point buy and random roll system. Very, very infinitely replayable, and it's got a really good vibe to it. And yeah, you can play urban ninjas and shit. It's great.
Yeah. So as we sort of discovered in our history of the Turtles, like this was made in 83 or 84 before the TV series. And the TV series is the one that introduced all those sort of stereotypical nerdle. Like there was no thing as they didn't like pizza back then, and it was all just about
they killed people,
mutant animals. Yeah. They didn't say cowabunga.
Yeah.
So
it is a very
it's
got a lot of what I would call bullet time is the vibe. So in the Matrix, where everything slows down and it's individual gunshots and stuff, and the action is slowed down to a cinematic crawl. That's what role playing a Palladium game is like. So it seems extremely crunchy, and it is because it's designed to be. It's designed to take every little nuance. Like, what sort of kick are you using? Oh, it's an overhead axe kick to his shoulder. And you a lot of like bullet dynamics and cover and dodging and rolling with punch for impact. It's very, very blow by blow role playing. So it's very technical in that regard, but it's also very, very imaginative.
Character creation. Great character creation as well.
It's a great game for theatre of the mind.
Would you say that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is more get together, get drunk, and smoke weed or take drugs compared to Jukebox, which is probably more get together, party, and sing songs?
Well, you got to understand, when I was playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was in school. I was 15 to 16 years old, Fred.
So it was, definitely.
Yeah. So the idea of a campaign didn't really exist. It was rolling up a character to make, like, this is my mutant opossum gadgeteer who's studied ninjutsu and Jeet Kune Do, or he's an Aikido master, or he's played Harang. He's mastered Tamashiwara. So I know more about Japanese martial arts from that game and ballistics and different types of SMGs and stuff like that from Palladium than from anything else I've ever played. Yeah, but then again, we just played so much of it that it's like the back of my hand. I can play Palladium games without referencing the rulebook. I can play it now. I could run a game for you right now.
my answer to your question, Fred, is if a person chooses to do karaoke sober, then they're a psychopath.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
horny.
Well, that's why I added in drinking as well.
Yeah.
Whereas the difference is,
Yeah,
and
you don't
back
need
and-
it,
back
but
and drugs
it's certainly improved by it.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a craze that has made its it's built off the backbone of alcohol.
Yeah. If anybody complains about the complexity of a Palladium game, I would say look at somebody playing the Magic the Gathering cards now. That's the level of complexity. So it's learning all the combos and stuff like that. But you can learn it. It's not insurmountable.
Okay, some other ones on my list. Gloomhaven, the role-playing game. A dark, fantastical world of Gloomhaven incorporates tactical combat and narrative elements in a traditional RPG format based on the popular board game. I've heard a bit about this one.
I've heard nothing.
You anything to say?
I understand that the starter set looks very much like a board game, but then it came from those origins. I don't know an awful lot about it. I know that it's clearly an extension of the board game into a tabletop role-playing game, and I don't know anything more than that. I haven't. Yeah, that's it.
Dragonbane. We've mentioned that already, I believe.
Yeah, that's the an RPG that was as big as, well, basically the D&D of another country, another culture.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's quite rules streamlined, it's quite rules light. Your characters have got like basically 2 or 3 things that they do. But otherwise it's a very imagination driven game. It's not a mechanic or technical game. It can be a little bit confusing. The rules are a little bit tricky to pick up, I've found. Like it's one of those games which benefits from having somebody who knows how to play it show you how to play it, in which case you pick it up really fast. But if you're reading it much like D&D Basic back in the day, you need to actually play it to learn it, sort of thing.
It's also a very old game
Yeah.
that has been re-released.
Yep.
Probably
Great
the same
artwork,
with this one.
fantastic artwork, beautiful. And I love playing a duck dude.
Yeah, Blades in the Dark's another one, probably similar. A dark industrial city known as Doskville. Focus on daring scoundrels seeking fortunes in a haunted city, emphasizing player choice and collaborative storytelling.
So Blades in the Dark has been around a while, but they keep putting out new books that sort of expand on the first Blades in the Dark. There's supplements, but there's also like here's a new rule system that sort of has the same vibe, and I believe that is powered by the Apocalypse Blades in the Dark.
Have you checked out local guy Darcy's RPG with all the ducks, Fred?
No.
Oh.
No, tell me, does it involve sitting on a park bench with a sack and a club and banging ducks on the head and then shoving them into the sack? Because that's a thing here in New Zealand. So
yeah. No. So Darcy,
I don't know anyone that does that, Fred.
No,
dude, it used to happen in Warkworth where I was living in that area. Yeah.
My brother lived in Warkworth for a long time, and he's quite skilled at living off the land.
Bunch of dunk bashers up there.
I'm going to ask him next time I see him. So Darcy, great guy, and he is a miniature sculptor, and he loves making adventuring miniatures that are duck themed, duck warriors, duck heroes, and he created an entire RPG for it, and it was really, really good. It's really good. You can play as robots and all sorts of stuff in there, giant duck monsters. If you like the duck theme, or you can tolerate the duck theme, it is a really, really great game. Great game.
Do the ducks wear pants? That's always been my problem with.
Yeah, they do.
Donald Duck.
Yeah.
It's like how the duck came from outer space.
Yeah, the duck condom.
I got to watch that again. That movie was so cringe. Yeah.
Oh no. We should do. I want to do a one on like. Heaps of people have been commenting about Highlander 2 in our feed. I remember I had a rant about Highlander 2. I feel like there's a lot of pressure for us to cover the Highlander.
Oh, please. No, I don't want to talk about Highlander 2. I can talk about Highlander, but not the first.
Just give us a doll and I'll show you where it touched me.
Okay.
Here's one you keep saying they should make more of. No Thank You, Evil. A whimsical world for children and families. encourages creativity and storytelling in a light-hearted fantasy setting for younger players.
Yeah, a lot of games have tried to answer the question of how do I role play with my kids. The kids on bikes is probably one of the best things, and I think Fred has often said, "Don't write for kids, write for adults," and kids will read it. And I feel that same way about RPGs. Kids love to get the shit scared out of them. Like Dungeons and Dragons is designed for 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds. So yeah.
Yeah, the 8-year-olds are really keen to play as well, man.
Oh yeah,
yeah, give it to them. Yeah,
kids these days are savvy as fuck. You know, they've seen all sorts of horrors before they've even understood what they are. So they're not snowflakes. These kids.
These are not. These aren't new games either. These are old games we're talking about. Yeah, they've been around a while.
Yeah.
I mean, because my daughter knows now that I do a podcast, and she tells me to be careful so I don't get cancelled, and she's only 9. So she knows she already knows what that means.
Yeah. Truth is, I've already been cancelled. You come back from it.
There's a Witcher tabletop RPG coming out. That will have a big cult following. I haven't heard much excitement. And one I did cut you off before, AJ, that I said we'll get back to, that I thought was on my list was Morgborg.
Yeah. Morgborg, Cyborg, Pirate Borg. There's lots of Borgs. They are really good tactical skirmish games that you can play with miniatures, which we don't do, generally speaking. But with the miniatures community, you've also got Easy D6 from DM Scotty, who's very much into the crafting of miniatures and terrain. And he teamed up with Runehammer with that one. Morgborg is very, very graphically designed. That's very popular. The layout is very popular, which just it doesn't really appeal to me that much because it's just too punk rock. Like it's like an album cover every single page, which makes my very orderly mind twitch because I'm a very visual person. So I just I think if I played it a lot.
The art style reminds me, you know how bands like put their posters on walls with glue and they splatter everything across? It's got that chaotic. Yeah, I know what you mean by punk rock.
It's very much a raw vibe, and the settings that you play in are gonzo. So everything is coming at you at once, and everything is deadly, and everything is horrible. So it's blood and guts, and that is very much a beer and pretzel and hit the bong sort of game for sure.
I can see Fred's face. Fred has got something to say, and I could see it bottled up in his face already.
He's going to tell me about the monkeys or something.
No, I'm not going to tell you about the monkeys. So yes, I've played this game. I've played when AJ has been running Pirate Borg. But no, for me, Pirate Borg is not a tactical game. It is a very rules light game. The main core rule book is horrendously difficult to actually navigate.
Taryn loves it. Taryn Pounds loves the layout for that book.
It's an art book. It's an art RPG book. But in terms of design and layout, and he's being facetious because Taryn hates that layout in terms of the design and how to navigate through it. But art-wise, he likes that way. But I've heard him talk about that. No, the thing is that Morgborg is tactically and rules simple. It's very, very basic. I suppose you could play it tactically, but I don't think that's really what it was ever designed for. It is really just designed to play fast and be deadly and ruthless, and just accept that you will die. Just win.
Let's say it's about as tactical as playing Hero Quest.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. I
like Hero Quest.
Yeah. It's got that's the vibe to it, I think. But it's much more punk rock, much more gritty. And it feels
like I need to have 80s metal in the background when I'm playing Morgborg.
Yeah. So to give you some idea, Pirate Borg is essentially Pirates of the Caribbean, but the Curse of the Black Pearl with the undead. But the undead are taking over everything. Like the undead are everywhere, literally crawling out of the sea. It's so prevalent that people are snorting undead powder. Like powdered bones of undead as a drug, a narcotic. That is deadly. Like, you want a death stick? Yeah, this shit rots your brain and your soul at the same time, and you raise it's just another one that gets killed and churned up into more drugs. Plus, you've got the East Indian Company is cutthroat, and you've got the English powers and the French powers and the Spanish powers all trying to murder each other. So it's an absolute shit show. Basically an apocalypse with pirates that you're in, and that's Pirate Borg.
But it's
You're
also
selling
not,
me, mate.
it's not a new game.
You're selling me.
Like your character is a drug addict or insane or a berserker or got some weird disease. They're all messed up.
I'm down for this. This sounds up my
alley.
A
crew of just hopeless people, kind of like the factions and secret factions and Paranoia.
But it's not a new game.
It's
not a new game. It's been out for a long time. It came out just about the same time as Wally DM got his puzzle book out, and he's competing with this book, Morkborg, for the Ennies. I don't know. The judges need to have their heads examined for giving it best layout, frankly.
I would say most
clearly,
refreshingly different layout.
There was a community that did a lot of voting that were probably from Sweden. Well done, guys. You obviously have pulled your resources at the right time. Look, I played the game. I had fun. I'd play it again. And they are at least, they're building on Morkborg, and they're trying to do other stuff. There's always a push to try to, we've got Pirate Borg, we've got Cyborg, and then there'll be more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What I appreciate about it is it's easy to find and buy, like physical books.
Yeah, very much so.
I would say that those the layout needs to come with a warning for people who are triggered by seizures and stuff like that from flashing lights. Like if you flip the pages too quickly in front of somebody, they'd go down in a frothing heap.
Yeah,
probably tells you a lot about your personality. For me, karaoke game, hard no. Snorting zombies, hard yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bring it on. Yeah. I want my character to die. Yeah.
Is there anything else? That's me. Is there anything you guys?
I have a huge list. I have a huge list of new games that are coming out that have been published.
We got 45 minutes, so you go for it.
So
if you want to skim through it,
AJ knows about this one. Sagas, Dennis, the OKS DM. We played that game. It's an easy character creation process. It's very fast, very simple to follow, and it's a very narrative game. And there's really no maths in the game. You just roll whatever dice is appropriate for whatever you're doing. So whether it's 4-sided dice, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20-sided dice. But usually you don't see 20-sided dice. You're usually only using the lower end, if I remember right. And crazy game. Like you can have a lot of fun. You can do anything. It's system agnostic. You can do fantasy. You can do a Western. You can do Star Wars. You can do anything you like with that thing. And it works quite well. I haven't heard very much from Dennis recently, but all the best with that game, dude.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Robbie's Enclave is even more rules light and narrative. It's got theater kid at its heart, but it reminded me a lot of Mage, Vampire the Masquerade, Mage the Ascension, Changeling. Those games with the you put certain points in certain aspects, and then it's very fluid about what you can do with those that level of power that you have in that particular field of thing. So characters can be very specific, like a gunslinger type character, or you can be, this or that. There's lots of different archetypes, and it's kind of like also reminded me of Sapphire and Steel, because you've got these very different like characters from different eras of history or different locations who come together, and they're strangers in a strange land here to solve a problem. And Sapphire and Steel is exactly like that. It's like elements of the universe who have been given a personality and are assigned to a rip in space-time. It's like, figure it out.
That's something I haven't heard for years, Sapphire and Steel.
Oh, yeah. There needs to be a Sapphire and Steel role-playing game, and I'll write it. It's, nobody will like it, but I'll write it. I'll make it.
There's also another game rolling around, another D&D clone that has tried to sort of update the game, and that is Nimble 5e. Nimble 5e takes the 5e core rules of D&D and just chops away everything that they decided was unnecessary. Attack rolls, ability scores are trimmed down. I don't think there's 6, I think there's 4. And then your combat is simpler, your character progression is simpler, and it's designed to play the completely different direction to 5e, where D&D 5e plays slow. This plays really fast, really, really fast. I haven't had a chance to do very much with it or really look at it that closely, but the rules are free. You can get the rules free. You can pay for the rules if you really want. But yeah, there they have an option to grab that and pick it up and try it out if you think that would be more your thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's particularly good if you're at conventions and things like that, and you need to have people pick up and play something very quickly. Trimming away a lot of the rules is a good idea, because they're not going to be playing a campaign; they're going to be playing a one shot, and you want them to pick up their rules before their attention span is burnt out. So yeah, because in a one shot, you got to hit things very punchy. You got to make the character. You got to give them a pre-made character that they can understand pretty much straight away. You got to give them the synopsis of what the character is doing and what the character is, and then you got to run through 3 or 4 encounters and then a conclusion within a space of 2 to 3 hours. So
yeah,
you
need to
really
try and hit all the pillars of play as well.
Yeah, so then you got to really look at it and compromise, and say, okay, what is necessary to play to get the vibe of Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what Nimble does.
Yeah. There's also Ben from the Questing Beast. He's put out a second version of Knave 2, and that is really old school D&D, heavily cut back. Like I don't think I've seen a game that has been trimmed back as much as that one. There really isn't much to it.
It's like the extreme edge of OSR. He probably says it's OSR, but God, no, it's not. Yeah.
There's a lot of tables in there, and there's a lot of make your own stuff, homebrew, very narrative, and he eliminated a lot of the dice rolling from that game, instead and opted for I guess player process, forcing the players.
What they need to eliminate is the game master, because that's the one thing people don't want to be.
Yeah.
Well, I understand. I mean, I haven't got a copy of that book, but I understand that it's pretty easy to run if you're comfortable with, improvising. If you're not comfortable with improvising, you may have a few questions. But generally, it's designed for somebody who I would say has probably already been exposed to some sort of tabletop role-playing game like D&D. And he's doing quite nicely, and he probably will continue to, actually. Yeah. What else is there? We've got to talk about Pathfinder Remastered by Paizo, I think, because they had second edition come out almost not that long ago, and like 6 months later, the OGL happened, and so they decided, okay, fine, we're just going to just remove everything that might be attached to that, completely wording everything. And I mean, I still believe that it is based off the OGL, but they, since you can't really copyright game rules, they just called it remastered. It's basically Pathfinder, which is D&D second edition remastered, with the attempt to not inspire Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast to activate their lawyers and put them into marching order, frankly. Yeah.
I think Pathfinder's day is done. My opinion. Sorry, I don't know anyone excited by Pathfinder anymore. I think they had their moment in the sun. Their 15 minutes.
I think that's probably not true, because they sold all their books last year. I couldn't buy it. In fact, I had somebody have to send the books to me, second edition. I could not buy it in New Zealand. I could not get it shipped from overseas to me. And somebody.
That was a knee-jerk reaction to the OGL, though.
It was.
I think that's died out now.
After that, I haven't seen. There's so few copies out there, so there is a very large community playing that game, whether it's first edition, second edition, or remastered.
No, you want my copy?
Well, I've got a copy now.
I have the. Do you want this? I've got the starter box for it unwrapped. Do you want me to send you the starter box?
But it's not the game I want to play. I've had enough of 3.5. I played Pathfinder first ed edition. I do not plan to. Second ed edition scares me it makes me want to piddle myself every time I see it and just freak out. So yeah, but it appeals to a particular audience, and I still think it's got a pretty good following, really.
Yeah, to me, it's just kind of, if you're going to move away from D&D, it's not varied enough to, I don't know. It's kind of like
it's very derivative. Yeah, it's very derivative. It was a continuation of 3.5 edition, and the second edition is basically a correlation of stuff that has come along that they've added into the game over time anyway. So it's basically just an update to what people are currently playing. And then, Galarian, the world setting is so closely so close to what, like me doing monster ecologies, I avoid doing any Pathfinder stuff because it would just be confusing for people. You're like, wait, I thought Wyverns had this body design. It's like, no, the artwork in Pathfinder is different because it's got to be different a little bit because otherwise it would be copyright infringement. So yeah, it's like, it's like vegan version of it's gluten-free D&D.
I do like the Pathfinder goblins, football shaped heads.
Yeah, it's got a lot of stylistic stuff to it that's good. I'm not going to say I'm not yucking other people's yum. I'm just saying no, I don't want to learn two versions of the same thing.
Over the OGL there was this like a whole bunch of D&D channels were like just made the hard left turn to Pathfinder, and then that's kind of, and everyone was trying to buy Pathfinder. And to me now, I don't just see that now in the community anymore. I don't see people really talking about it. It's kind of
would be the equivalent of, okay, you're driving a car down the road. Are you driving an automatic or a manual? That's how different Pathfinder is. The vibe is still the same when you're running the game. So you're still playing D&D. It's just not was the coast version of it.
Yeah,
and if you like it, good on you. Yeah, like I say, like we're not. Yeah,
you're still D&D players. Like I say, I'll jump into a game of Pathfinder because I know how to play D&D. So yeah, but it's not my. I won't instigate that because it's not my vibe.
It's very crunchy. It's very customizable, but it's very, very crunchy, which is why I don't feel inclined to.
I'd rather play D&D 3rd edition or 3.5 than Pathfinder.
I would rather play GURPS Discworld or like there's Discworld stuff coming out at the moment, which is really good. I'd rather play Tunnels and Trolls or Warhammer Fantasy or Basic Fantasy or Fantasy Age has just like, it's just enough different from D&D to make it a refreshing change. Like we took a break from 4th edition because we just got tired of it, honestly, and we played 6 months of Fantasy Age, and they also started playing Iron Kingdoms, which is a tabletop role-playing game, war game that's also got a role-playing game attached to it, and they were playing just the role-playing game version. And also Warhammer 40k has got some fantastic role-playing books, Rogue Trader and Death Watch, if you want to play completely gonzo and play a team of super-powered space marines from the future from different chapters who've come together on death missions for honor and glory. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So my reaction to this is I wouldn't want to play it because I prefer to be punched in the face. But but
I'd rather club a duck.
This is turning into an entirely different episode of our podcast.
But to be fair, it fills a niche. It fills that niche in the community.
There's always been clubbing ducks. That's what
made the RPG.
It fills a niche where people who are very, very much into complexity and looking for how a system works, and like a high learning curve.
Mythrogue.
It's very much the nerd game. Another game I would like to mention that has recently been released is Crown and Skull by Runehammer Games.
Mm-hmm.
Crown and Skull is really Fernand has basically looked at the game he released in the past, and he's decided his index RPG game, and he's decided I want to release something else with a different vibe. Very clever individual. I don't know that necessarily it's going to have a huge following, but I believe it will have a loyal following. and so there will be a community that play this game as well and enjoy it. And it will be designed to be easy to run. Like
Yeah.
he always thinks very
he's
hard
a
about
designer
that.
after my heart because he's not afraid to absolutely just throw all preconceived concepts about what a role-playing system is on its head and just pursue the gameplay and the vibe, and throw some really strange ways to approach role-playing game systems at you,
Yeah.
which is refreshing as hell.
Yeah.
I really want to read his stuff when it comes out. I really want to understand where he's coming from. And he's had some of the most epic live stream rants I've ever seen. Yeah, he's a great guy.
That's coming from you as well.
I know.
Rants.
No, yeah, but I don't get shit faced drunk and tear the industry apart. That was great.
Oh, I was funny when I was watching him doing the Dungeon Master Guide review of for 5e, and he's getting pissed the whole time.
Yeah.
And you see his whiteboard filling up with stuff. I was like, geez, I don't understand. Does he like this book? Does he hate it? I can see the list. The things that he doesn't like seem to be longer than the things that he does like. But yeah, there's another game that is based off the 5e engine called Ultramodern 5 Redux, made by Chris Dayas. I think, I don't know, AJ, have you met Chris? I can't remember. You might have. And he's basically used the 5e engine, and it's designed for a modern environment rather than a fantasy environment or science fiction. And I think there's even the option to sort of go superhero wise, but generally it's sort of mechs and tanks and vehicles, robots, aliens. Players are robot, players and alien, players are spliced into. Yeah, there's all sorts of things going on there. So he re-released that.
Yeah, believe it or not, 5th edition actually adapts itself quite well to being a superhero game. Funny that.
Yeah.
Just give him 3 feet. No, there's a lot of you can do lots of with the 5e system, and it's just becoming more and more modular and more sort of, people say bland and vanilla, but a modular system that adapts to a lot of different settings that can be expanded into all sorts of different types of gameplay has to be like that. And also, as an IP that you can apply to different things, like Magic the Gathering, for instance, is a set of card rules. It's got a base underlying mechanics to it. Everybody understands how it works. You tap mana to pay for the cost of the card, and then everything is mechanics that you tack onto that. And Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is going more that direction because that's exactly the model that the shareholders want them to pursue, which is we want the online cash, thank you very much, and the sales and stuff. But that is another story.
So there's plenty of options. You got more there, Fred?
Oh, yes. My list is quite extensive, almost a page. Legends in the Mist. I don't know if you've necessarily heard of Legends in the Mist. It's new. It is basically an extension of City in the Mist. I don't know if you know about that particular game, but basically this thing is heavily focused on narrative role-playing rather than complex rules for tactical combat. So if you want rules light, that's sort of what it does. And I mean, City in the Mist.
It's out Ethereum as well.
Yeah. I believe City in the Mist was more sort of an urban environment. Legend in the Mist sort of moves a little bit away from that, just a teeny weeny bit. I guess another one that came out that I don't think has got great reviews has been Arkham Horror, the role-playing game. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an RPG that's all about horror, scaring you, danger, and it fills a niche. But from what I can see, people weren't terribly impressed with its mechanics, the game itself. It depends, when people do reviews, they're not necessarily doing the review because they like the game. Sometimes they're just doing the review because they got paid to. Sometimes they're doing the review because they got to do a review, and sometimes they're doing the review because they did like the game. And yeah, that one seems to sort of not maybe hasn't hit its market properly. That one.
Call of Cthulhu exists. Delta Green exists. So
Yeah.
I would The Strange from Monty Cook Games exists. So I would just I would go with those ones because you don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time just to hit the vibe of these games. Much like the similarity between playing Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, there's really not a lot of difference between Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green and other games like that. You're an underpowered character who's investigating something which could clearly kill you, but you're compelled to carry on investigating it because it's so interesting. Even though it's the inevitable doom of your character is coming, how you die is just as entertaining as how you've built your character in the first place, or their fate eventually. Because it's the entire character arc of the story, from beginning innocence to mounting threat, the strange compulsion, the descent into madness, the upset of reality, the confronting of the supernatural, and then the aftermath, which is how you were introduced to the concept in the first place. Is some mad person has given you a book or recounted a tale, or there's an article, or there's a mystery in the place which your character's gone to investigate in the first place, and it goes full circle, and you end up being the crazy lunatic, or the body and discovered that died mysteriously. That's the appeal of those sort of games. Or playing X-Files, right? It's more fun when Mulder and Scully are the victims of the thing that they're trying to investigate.
So heading down the dark side, there's also the Walking Dead universe RPG by Free League Publishing.
Oh, Jesus.
That's actually came out not that long ago. And that that's trying to fill a particular slot.
How's that show still going?
Yeah, Infected by my friend over in Australia, Oliver. He started it and produced Infected. It's a post-zombie apocalypse survivalist game. So it's kind of like The Last of Us kind of vibe to it, where you got different types of zombies and stuff. And but I find it difficult to get into those games because I just don't like the idea of zombie apocalypse because there's nothing else going on, really. And I don't.
The horde.
Yeah. Also, the corporate espionage, cybernetics, ninjutsu sort of games don't really appeal to me much either, unless I'm hanging upside down with grenades going off around me, trying to take over a helicopter and crashing it into a building.
Zombie apocalypse just seems like build a safe house, hide from the threat of the zombies. Oh, wait, turns out everyone in the safe house is the bigger threat. Humans are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's usually like gunfights with shotguns and a rapid attrition until there's really good board games for zombie apocalypse stuff. Those are much more fun than a role-playing game, I find.
The Walking Dead, actually, off topic, the Walking Dead comic actually had a really definitive ending, which was really satisfying. It wrapped itself up nicely and really good ending. And fuck, that TV show just doesn't go away. It spins off. Spins off into all these random directions, and
we've got a new miniseries coming. It's that kid on a bike on episode 2 that we never told the story of. Yeah.
If you're into the sci-fi, Star Trek Adventures, the second edition has been released just recently too, and I think that was last year. So that's another thing. We're not just seeing new games; we're seeing the republishing of older games that were already had a following. And I don't have to explain what that is. It's Star Trek. You know what Star Trek is.
I would love to play a Star Trek game where one of my players just speaks completely in Klingon because that's what his character would do. I'd fucking rather masturbate with a cheese grater than play that.
Going down the dangerous route, I need to mention a game, but I'm afraid to mention it because these other ones may never get a chance to be spoken about, and there's quite a few of them which I'm just going to rattle off. I need to, I guess, mention. No, I'm going to mention it last because that'll be the end of the conversation.
We've got what have we got time? We've got 12 12 minutes before I have to. My wife is going to be in here telling me we need to.
So I'm going to rattle off these, and then I will bring up the one that I know will send AJ into a rant. Okay.
We're going to end on a. So no letters today. We're going to end on a classic AJ rant.
Well, it's probably going to happen. So there is Triangle Agency that's coming out. There, I think it might have already come out through the hedgerow. I'm not going to explain these things. It's just these are games.
It's a paranormal investigation one. My understanding of
Bad. I'm not going to explain any more. Big, grave fantasy fashion. Yes, it is not designed for you if you're a guy. More than likely, it is designed more for the women out there who like the idea of getting into fashion. The Hidden Isle, the Diablo RPG, the Assassin's Creed RPG, Stone Top, Shadow of the Weird Wizard. We've also got Tales of Primordia. There's the Monty Python tabletop role-playing game. There's the Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yes, there is a Monty Python. It's got a really long, confusing name. I was just going to say Monty Python because if I try to read out the whole thing, you'll just get lost. Marvel Multiverse RPG got released, I think,
it's already
last
out.
year. We've got is it Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast? You basically add a bed and breakfast. You know what I mean? You know what a bed and breakfast is.
Mm-hmm.
Old Gods of Appalachia.
Yep.
There's Syndicate.
Marketed the hell out of that one. Got so sick and tired I had to stop the emails. Like,
Syndicate. Corico. I think it's Corico. Public Access. Guardians of Earthly Delights, which is Hieronymus. I think it's Hieronymus. Guardians of Earthly Delights. The Inevitable. A Doom Arthurian Western RPG. You're basically you're getting screwed. It's a Western. Relic. For Small Creatures, Such as We. It's a weird title. Coffee and Chaos. One Breath Left. And All the Witches. So there are, we can't go over all of these things, but there are a lot of games.
There's one that was on my list that I want to just say just because of the title, and I had to type it into Google, which my wife is going to ask me why is this in the Google search engine now?
Yeah.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Waspinator, you got to watch Waspinator's videos sometime on YouTube. He is an acerbic and opinionated dude who comes up with these RPGs. They all use the basic system, so you buy one of them and you've learned the system for all of them, kind of like Free League, and their games use the common dice mechanic. And although the titles are very provocative, the games are actually quite playable. And yeah, they're a bit more broad than just thirsty sword lesbians and stuff, and warrior vixens of Mars. And
I'm just going to clear that out of my search history while we're talking.
Yeah, okay, you do that. Now I'm going to drop the big hammer. Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Maledictum is a new game, part of the Warhammer role-playing game. It is a thing. So they haven't just sort of updated. They've made another game that's following that dark and depressing futuristic world or universe. And it's amazing how well they seem to do. They keep being able to make these things.
I wouldn't call Warhammer 40k games depressing. I would say that it's a dark and dystopian view of the far, far future.
Optimistic. It's not an optimistic future.
I mean, if you like war, it's great. If you like industrial levels of social engineering and terraforming and genetic engineering and dark technology, cybernetics, robotics.
It's a Hasbro future.
Psychic torment, demon-like gods of the chaos, and eldritch technology gone wrong. Yeah.
Dictatorial propaganda, tyranny.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get real.
Yeah.
This is where we're leading.
This
So
is the future that Trump wants. No, no. Warhammer 40k is dark and gritty because it comes out of Thatcherian England, 1990s, 1980s to early 1990s. It is dark, grim, gritty as hell. Very punk rock, very, very teenage anorak wearing social misfit. It's a great game. It's raw. Like you wouldn't get games like that made in America, really. Not mainstream like they are.
Yeah. Just which body part do you want to replace first? That's really what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So playing a rigorously trained, genetically engineered religious cult assassin, for instance, as a play character is definitely a vibe. Playing a null psychic, or a something like that, yeah, great. It'd be like playing, I don't know, EVE Online as a role-playing game. God, how would you even conceive that?
I still have my copy of Space Marines 2 sitting on my desk. I haven't even played it yet. Haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
The joys of being old is you can afford things and you just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I think my youngest brother, wants to play that game today. Although he's like, oh, maybe I should wait until my birthday. But
I just want them to stop pissing around making games and just make a movie with all the graphics and stuff that you would have in a major release game, because that's what we really want to see. I find the games very formulaic. Like you're basically on a track. It's like you're riding a train. It's very like
if you're Henry Cavill doing that. Was that just rumors?
No, I'm talking about like a computer game.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you meant.
So I find it much like God of War and stuff like that. You're basically on a track. Like you can't deviate from the path that the game is setting you on. And the Warhammer games feel like that to me. You're just playing out the story. You
just watch the cutscenes on YouTube.
Yeah, that's essentially what I end up doing. Save myself $120. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, going back to the last little thing I would say is I'm really glad to see that there are, smaller RPGs, whether they're indie games or not indie games, by, fairly sizable publishers. I'm glad to see that there is a sort of a spreading of that. And I know a lot of people have always they keep spouting like that when that sort of happens, when we have the community playing different games, that will be a bad thing. That publishers will die, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of publishers who will release games and they will not succeed and they will fail.
Yeah.
But this is actually the normal landscape. It is actually not a normal landscape to have one game always doing well all the time.
Yeah.
And 5e had a weird progression in that it started slow. It actually did not take off in New Zealand and around the world straight away in 2014. And it took about 2 years, and then its progression was up. Rather than normally the progression is you get your initial sales and then it goes down. So we're actually heading back to where the norm was, which is there are a lot more stuff being played, and that'll probably continue, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all right.
Yeah, the industry should be a background fuzz of like Clark and anti-Clark reactions where the RPGs pop up and disappear, pop up, disappear, pop up, disappear. And you'll end up with a massive shelf full of Kickstarters and stuff that you backed that you'll never find players for. That's just normal. And then one or two, like Chelsea's Shadowdark and stuff like that, will be the standout, like just shining stars that go pong, and they answer a question which is being asked by the community, like, can we play this vibe? Is there anything produced? Is there any game that perfectly fits this game that I want to play, or this style of play that I play? So really smart designers look at how people are playing, and they look for what gaps, something that isn't fulfilling a need that people have, or even introducing people to something that they didn't realize they needed. Like Runehammer and stuff like that, giving them a totally different vibe or totally different way to approach role-playing games and very innovative stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Quite often it doesn't. There's a certain momentum that Dungeons and Dragons has in people's hearts and minds, particularly the latest generation of people. There's a lot of mono players who've only ever played D&D 5th edition, and then even scarier than that, you've got a large proportion of them who have never even run a game or never even read the Dungeon Master's Guide. And the idea that we have this assumption that the player of the game eventually learns how to run the game and then passes on the torch and teaches other people. There's a lot of 5th edition players who take offense at that and say, no, I should never have to run a game. Yeah, it's like, well, so you just, what happens if you have a problem with your dungeon master? That's it. You can't play anymore. It sucks. Yeah.
Well, there definitely is a dungeon master shortage.
Yeah, I think this edition 2024 is addressing that, and we'll see that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, guaranteed.
I think we answered the question. Why are indie games on the rise? And we definitely gave plenty of options. There's a shitload of games out there.
And we're just scratching the surface.
We're just scratching the surface, yeah. So if any of those jump out at you, check them out. I don't think any of them are going to be D&D killers. This game's been around for 50 years. It's never going to truly die. It will never reach the popularity that it got with 5th edition, I think, either.
I never say never.
Never say never. But then again, never say never that another tabletop role-playing game won't come in and be the game that people play. Because
there's no such thing as too big to fail. That's just an American concept that you guys have been gaslit into believing. Hasbro's been around for 100 years, but it could go away tomorrow. It's basically a collection of shareholders. It has no real soul.
Yeah, but I think the actual Dungeons and Dragons itself, I think will still.
Yeah, it may change hands. It may go to another company. I hope it does.
Third party publishers already proved that they can just keep making that game.
They'll sell it. If Hasbro does die, they'll just sell it as an IP. They'll just dump it onto somewhere else. The game will still live on, in my opinion.
A large part of the game really is just the assumption that other people will teach you how to play it. And that
it has. I mean, look at the past. It has changed. It has changed hands before and survived.
Yeah.
So, it could do that again. Who knows? But I think it will still be around.
Yeah, like you say, like 5th edition, for instance, has only got one official monster manual, but there's two. Look at this. Here we have monster manual expanded 1 and 2, massive big tomes of third-party stuff that just expanded on the monster manual. So it's supported so much by its community that it almost just gets an own goal every single time. It's just got so much creative talent behind it that every other indie game that comes along just can't match that level of people who play it so you can get a game in, everything else is just a percentage of what D&D, the access and the ease of finding new groups and stuff. So when D&D has a problem, the entire industry has a problem, and quite often those problems are answered by indie games.
Yep. So variety is the spice of life, also they say.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty out there. I mean, no, I was clubbing ducks, snorting undead, and thirsty lesbian swords. That's what I got out of this.
Yep. Yeah. There were much more.
That's the episode title there.
Yeah. One thing that suffered is the current age of kind of moral hysteria that we're in at the moment has meant that a lot of the really, really avant-garde role-playing games just they can't happen. Like playing a psychopath, for instance, who's serial killing, and that's you're role playing that character, for instance. That's just impossible. Real Japanese like weirdo porn stuff. That's not possible these days. I think I don't know if we're better for it, but there's also a lot of real gonzo stuff like Fatal and
it's like Game of Thrones. I have no interest in. I like Game of Thrones, but I have no interest in playing a role playing game set in that universe.
It's too boring.
Too ancestral and
I mean, the only supernatural creatures they had in there was undead and dragons. That's it, really. Oh, and some fae folk.
But I think we should do an episode on Shadowdark at some point.
Yeah,
I should probably actually play a proper game before we get that done, but that shouldn't be a problem. We're sorry we missed letters. We actually got a ton of letters today as well. So I do apologise that we didn't get to them, but we had too much fun talking about other things. And thanks to everyone for getting up early for me. I can see my wife just popped her head in and did the old wrap it up, Oscar speech type.
She'll
Type
probably
thing.
get used to the idea of us doing it by about episode 43.
Episode 43 is going to be fucking epic.
Mhm.
We're getting there. So, yeah. Anything else from you guys?
Thanks. Bye.
Tell us what to do.
Go to your thing. Go to your thing before your wife comes and turns off the computer.
Yeah.
Just turns the internet off.
And stop driving your car with your cell phone on.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We got a whole bunch of. I got a whole bunch of new subscribers, which I kidnapped off your community. So hopefully, and hopefully I didn't upset anyone, but we'll find out.
To those of you who are joining us from my Discord server after Nacho kindly went in there and informed everybody that it was a podcast that I was doing, and jumped down his throat. Shame on you. And I know your names.
I was just like,
we've got moderators, guys. We've got moderators. Okay, we don't need your help.
If this upsets anyone, I'll just remove. I didn't just post this on here just to fucking upset people. It's not what I'm about.
When you jumped into my Discord, did anybody jump down?
No, yours is not. No, yours is fine. Everyone knows. Yeah, I'm more I don't sort of. I don't want to like. I'm a bit scared of AJ's Discord.
Yes, you should be.
It's rant friendly. Although we're PG-13, we push the boundaries sometimes. And what we are doing is we're splitting the server up into. There's going to be a general message board for people who are new to my community, and we'll have a segregated message board for the people who have been there a bit too long, maybe.
Yours is So when I jump on Fred's one and I post something, someone usually replies within a day or so, and that's a kind of speed of conversation that I like. Where if I put something in AJ, someone seems to reply within 3 seconds, and someone replies to that one within 3 seconds, and then I'm like, holy, I can't. There's too much. I can't. Like I'll post something and I'll go check it 15 minutes later, and there's like 28 people, and then I'm like, oh fuck up. No, what have I done? No. I'm too old. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That's good night from me.
And it's good night from them.
And it's good night from somebody who's going to go back to sleep.
Yeah. Me too.
All right.